This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
How many weeks are we from the Great Minnesota Get-Together now?
7, maybe?
Wow.
You want me to do the math quick? Well, I'm not going to do the math.
Wow.
But it's July 7th. Right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 6.5 weeks, I think.
Got to get a shirt going. I got there was a memo left on my desk that probably is a couple weeks old about T-shirt ideas. It's that time again. And we
always make it Blarney Stone related.
Well, we talk about this and get good ideas like 2 months before, and I never save them. You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
Then we have to. Then at least for me, I have to start over.
Maybe that should be the shirt. Like, we had an idea 2 months ago, but never saved it.
It's possible.
That might be the bit.
They even want to know, like, do we want a T-shirt? Do we want a polo shirt? Do we want a hoodie?
Oh, we're thinking we're getting fancy.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I misread it. I thought they were, just looking for ideas on. Because we did a long sleeve tee one year. Remember? I don't think it did very well.
I remember that way back.
I
like
the shirt.
I know.
But, because you know me, I'm a long sleeve guy, even if it's 88 degrees.
That's true.
Anyway.
You are.
Gerald Posner in about 30 minutes on alleged JFK, CIA revelations, and many other stories as well. But first.
After the Twins had lost 2 of 3 to the Miami Marlins, they took the first 2 games of the series back home against the Tampa Bay Rays. Walk-off fashion, I believe, in both. 4-3 and then 6-5. They tried to do the same yesterday, but luck ran out, Dan. They just couldn't quite get it done. Yandy Diaz with an RBI double starts a 3-run 10th for the Rays. They win 7-5, so they snap the 2-game win streak that the Twins had put together. Minnesota now 43-37 as we pull up.
43-47.
What did I say? 37?
43-37.
Yeah, that'd be much better.
Yeah.
43-47. Which is 13.5 games back of the Detroit Tigers.
They're the only team in the division not fading. Everybody else is faded with us.
Yeah, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Not good.
No.
The Guardians have lost 10 in a row.
They can't score.
For Boudreaux. Yeah, their run differential is minus 59.
How about your guy? We're having on, did you tell me next week? Gleeman on?
Yes.
How about Gleeman going after the sacred cow, Carlos Correa? Did you read that piece?
I've seen. I've not read that one yet. Well, there's, Lavelle's been on that for like a year.
True.
If you'll recall.
Yeah.
But, and now it's kind of open season. And I think even yesterday he was up in a big spot and did not come through. And you know what's going to come back to bite him, I think? The Dior comment that he made a couple of years ago. Remember that? Where he said, if you want Dior. Am I pronouncing it right?
I've
never
been
purchased
used against them as much as you think it might. You're right.
Because there ain't no Dior right now.
No.
Now, there was one of the games over the weekend, I think, it might have even been yesterday. He did, he's great in the field, as we know. He had a great start to a double play that I think got them out of an inning.
But I think even some of the advanced analytics on his defense overall is heading the wrong direction. But anyway.
But if it's Dior, it's last season's Dior or 2 years ago Dior.
Yes.
It's not current day Dior. And no, you're right, because they need somebody besides Buck, and they're really not getting it. They're 13.5 games back of the Tigers, which is meaningless. That's been meaningless for a while. But now they're 5 games back in the wild card after they basically had the number 1 spot for like 2 months. And as you look at it, there's 3 teams in front of them for that final spot, which right now goes to Seattle. So things not great. They've got a couple more series before the All-Star break, including Coomdog, Ron Coomer's Chicago Cubs, coming to town tomorrow. That'll help attendance because I think only 3 teams that play in major league ballparks have worse attendance numbers than the Twins right now. 2 of them are Tampa Bay and the A's that we know are playing in minor league parks right now for very different reasons. So the Cubs are going to give a little stimulus package and make the July books look a little nicer for whoever might be buying the team. We still have no update on that. But they get the day off today and get the Cubs tomorrow. Anything you want to add before I give you the Byron Buxton update?
That's good enough for me.
Buck will add home run derby to his all-star duties, and that means he gets to bring his oldest kid, Bricks, on the field, which everybody's excited about. So Byron Buxton played in the 2022 All-Star game in Los Angeles, but now he gets to be a home run derby guy as well. So we're happy for Buck.
Did I see a Lavelle Screed, an angry Screed, suggesting that Joe Ryan should be an all-star?
Yes.
Here's where I am on that. I'm not going to debate whether he should have been or not. But for me, there's nothing less consequential.
Correct.
Than debating
yes.
The possibility of somebody being screwed out of an all-star berth on a team that's faded to the degree that they have. I just don't care.
I know.
It doesn't matter to me.
You're just yelling at the wind at that point.
Exactly it.
Yes.
It's just not. I just don't think it's worth the time. I'll be glad to tell Laval that on Friday.
Yeah, he'll join you. Now, Cheryl Reeve last night also
she's
complained.
Yeah.
That's a great transition.
About Clark?
No, not about Clark.
Okay. Now,
she is coaching Team Clark, which is just brilliant. Just so good. She had a good cheap shot or a good line of, we can make transactions, like playing into it. But so she's the all-star coach. Congratulations to her, which is great. But she brought it up last night. The Lynx won again yesterday against Chicago. Courtney Williams, I think, had 25 points. She was very good. When she plays at that level, they are very, very hard to beat. We saw in the finals last year, didn't happen enough.
Inconsistency.
That's part of the reason why they lost. But I should say Courtney, Williams is an all-star, along with, obviously, Nafisa Collier. And Reeves' comment after the game was kind of interesting. When you have far and away the best record in the league, we've only got 2. Doesn't make sense to me when I'm looking at some other teams that have 3 and more than us, so to speak. So does she have more of a leg to stand on? I would say probably yes.
Given their record,
yes.
Although, again, how many are you going to get?
That's the problem. This is the exercise this time of year.
It is. It's not new. Speaking of the Lynx, are we going to add this Belgian Emma? Is it pronounced Miesman?
I don't know how it's pronounced, but it sounds like it.
She hasn't played in the league for a couple of years, I think. Has continued to excel in fact, I think she led the Belgian team to the FIBA Women's Eurobasket Championship. She won the tournament MVP award. She wants to come back, apparently. And so it sounds like it'd be a great addition to the front court, right? Or do you say you don't want to mess with the chemistry on a team that's got that kind of record? I would say if she's that good, bring her in. Don't you?
Yeah. I say, all options. Samuelson's done for the year, Katie, the injury from over the weekend, so that's a buzzkill.
Correct.
So anyway, let me pull up the schedule to give you the latest on when they play, because they're ranked, like I said, they're 17-2. They're 4.5 games clear.
Yeah, the Liberty have kind of faded,
everybody.
Haven't they?
They have, yes. They're 12-6, as are the Phoenix Mercury. The Fever just 9-9, and Clark never plays anymore. Yeah, she pulled the groin.
What's that all about? Is she soft? I'm just asking.
They didn't need her last Tuesday night.
I'm sure Swoops has wondered about that, or has she?
God, there was somebody did say something stupid about that within the last week, and now I can't remember. Let me give you when the Lynx play again so that everybody knows. It is 2:30 in Phoenix on Wednesday. 7-9. Wednesday, 7-9. Did I have anything else for you?
This is kind of a long time ago. The Lynx goal this whole year is to have home ice.
For sure.
Which they didn't have last year in Game 5, obviously, against the Liberty. So they're in good shape on that. Not only having a great record, but saying we're going to determine this. If it's going to go to the distance, we're going to have home field throughout the playoffs. And that's where, when people talk about the vengeance and the revenge, and Reeve has even said, who are we getting revenge on? We can't get revenge on anybody, really. That's a good way, though, if you want to play with a purpose all season. We were in Barclays last year with the commissioner wearing a Skyline dress and the whole thing going nuts. Like, let's bring it back to Target. Now, it didn't help them in the Commissioner's Cup. No. Because the Fever came in here and won, and it wasn't a very good game. They scored 50-some points. It was not good. But that's the thing that keeps the edge the whole time. If it's going to come down to Game 5, let's have it back here, House of Pain. Another just quick NBA nugget, not surprising necessarily, but the Pacers confirmed that Tyrese Halliburton's not going to play at all next season. The whole season? The whole season is what they say. So, because there's always that, well, could they hold, Boston's doing it right now too. Could they hold water until March and then April and maybe just parachute in this all-NBA guy? It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I understand the instinct of it, but shows you how quickly things can change. Don't mess around with your windows. And also, I think
I mean, it just shows you how quickly things can change. Where the Pacers look like they're this team like Oklahoma City that has a runway of 3-4 years, and they still might, but you lose Halliburton like that.
They lost their big man to, didn't the Bucks sign him?
They did.
Or about to sign him?
Yes.
Whatever the case may be?
Yes.
Is there any way to blame the Halliburton news on Tibbs? Is there any way it could be brought back to Tibbs? That's what I'm wondering.
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Got to be a way.
Mike Brown, by the way, is officially the New York Knicks coach as well. So there you go.
Brown, there it is.
That saga is officially over. Can I give some money to people?
Let's do it.
Fan and BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. The final keyword of the evening is cash. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword cash.
And
Mall of America's mystery cards are back, and we are bringing them to you all summer long. You can come grab yours at KFAN events throughout summer and wherever you see our KFAN street team. Then make sure to redeem them at Mall of America for fun prizes and big discounts. Full list of events, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
What time is your apology to the Minnesota Aurora FC? We've mocked and ridiculed the club for having gaudy regular season records leading to one in the postseason.
Nothing.
0. But all I know is, fresh off another, I believe, 1-0 victory over something called King's Hammer FC, the Aurora have advanced to the USLW semifinals at home next weekend. I believe we're going to play a hated rival, the Utah United, Saturday, July 12. You might be there. TCO Stadium. That should be sold out.
Tickets went on sale today. I do know that.
They're probably gone by now, right?
I will not be there. I will be in Rochester for an event with Daryl Thompson.
So, in all fairness, we have not hesitated to mock and ridicule the club when they have been unable to gain any postseason traction. It looks like they're getting a little postseason traction. We'll see how far they can indeed make it, perhaps even to the title round. Meanwhile, in soccer, the U.S. men's team loses. I actually watched a decent amount of this. Edged by Mexico. Was it 2-1, I think was the final? I believe it was 2-1. Did you watch any of it?
I watched none of it.
Shame on you.
They did lose 2-1, yes.
And we got, of course, according to the head coach, the new head coach.
Job by the officials.
And several players, job by the officials. The question was, originally the game-winning, match-winning goal was originally called an offside. But instant replay, whatever they call it, they got a fancier name for it.
VAR. Yeah.
Reversed the decision, said it was a good goal. And so Mexico wins its 10th Gold Cup. Its 10th Gold Cup. The parts of the game I saw looked like we were dominated pretty more than the 2-1 final score. But, we'll now see where the story goes from here, because I don't think we're playing. I think the next, meaningful game we play is World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So we lose in the title round. Does the U.S. men's team by a 2-1 final score? And I thought, I'm not a great rules mind when it comes to soccer. I thought the reversal was accurate, was correct.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe we got jobbed. It's hard to say. Was it home cooking? Because it was on the road, right? It was in Mexico. So we'll have to see how that goes. I'd like to hear from the soccer community as well on that issue. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line at 64686. Call back to our discussion during the News on the March segment to the effort to play the blame game very quickly regarding the tragic flood story in Texas. Well said, Dan. They got 20 inches of rain in a few hours. Like you said, there are disasters that are unavoidable. This is absolutely one of them. Making this political, like current Americans all do, is pathetic. Well, let me add a couple things to that. We believe in following the story on this show. My issue isn't that ultimately there cannot be blame levied. My issue, my concern is how quickly we draw grand conclusions and then we get new information. that at least grazes it up a little bit. But we don't wait for that anymore. And I will say, respectfully to 952 Guy, does he feel this way because he's right of center? That he supports the Sharks and he doesn't want to see them under siege? And if so, and I don't know that he is, he may be very consistent. I don't want to speak for him. But would he feel the same way if it was a Democratic administration? Or would he try to seize upon it immediately and say, yeah, they need to be held accountable for what they did? Because what tends to happen is ox being gored, that the people who say, well, this is nonsense, there was nothing that could be done in this case, are the same people who would be quite less willing to take that position, that nuanced position, and put it on the administration of the other party. That's what I'm trying to get away from here. It isn't that blame should not be levied once we figure all of that out. This doesn't have to be 50-50 on everything. It's more, can we get more information, get a little bit more reporting? And in some cases, what we're reading in some publications is that some of the decisions have to do with decision-making at a local level, having, again, to do with money that's available. We all talk a good game about, well, we need this, we should add that, always after a tragedy like this. But the truth is, we lie about it, but the truth is it's harder sometimes to get consensus on that beforehand. When you think, well, we can deal with it, it's not great, yeah, ideal if we had the extra money, that's what we would do. It certainly sounds as if the warning system is the big blunder. That's one way or another, there should have been a siren warning system. Now, again, when the siren goes off, though, does everybody understand what it means? That's another question.
Sure.
I guess, but all you can do is all you can do, right? So at least it gives people some warning in places where apparently the cell phone coverage is not effective enough to say, like we all get, like Amber Alerts, we all get something on our phone.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody.
Yep. Weather alerts, too.
But if your cell phone coverage isn't very good in some of these areas, that's not a real effective way necessarily to get the point across to everybody. And as you pointed out earlier, too, there are a few people who heard the warnings of whatever form they got them in, but they were convinced, okay, we've gotten these before.
Yeah, they went to bed.
I've been here. It's okay. We'll indeed go, we'll indeed get through it. So we'll indeed see where this particular story goes. But I want to make it clear, I think a piece of this is going to be the unusual nature of the storm. Now, we could also argue about whether these camps should exist at all in such close proximity, because some of them were literally feet away from the river in question.
Mystic, it looked like it's right on the banks.
Yes,
right?
Exactly right.
That's tough.
So then you say, all right, well, there's a lot of places where you're supposedly not supposed to build. So is this an accident waiting to happen to that extent? All those questions should be asked. And ultimately, there should be, I think, if there is, every aspect of why this ended up happening should be part of the conversations. That doesn't mean fear of laying the blame. It just means we were laying that blame about 3 minutes. You said that might have been less than that as the story was being played out. And again, for too many people politically, they want to rush when they think it's the other side that's vulnerable. They don't want to rush. They say, well, slow down a little bit. Let's get a little bit more information. Well, nothing could have been done if they feel like their own party is somehow at risk. I had one other thing. Oh, let me read a couple of, this is a callback text from our discussion about the Ireland trip I'm just back from, and the fact that many of their phone booths in Ireland now contain not a phone, since everybody's got their own phone now, but a defibrillator. Chris writes, when your whole diet consists of Guinness and meat pies, you're going to need those phone booth defibrillators.
Come on.
It's a great idea, and it does seem as if Green Bay should have one of these on every corner as well. Fair point, don't you think?
Truth cannot be controversial.
I don't think it can. I think that was...
I'll have to let Gerby know.
That was fair. Now, I stayed away from the meat pies, I will say.
You didn't even try one?
No, because they were mainly beef pies. I'm not a beef guy. I'm a chicken. I love chicken pies, but
yeah.
I didn't find a lot of those. What I did find was the greatest seafood chowder I've ever eaten. Almost every restaurant had, and you know, what struck me as one of the key differences between seafood chowder there and seafood chowder here, there was actually seafood in the chowder there.
Oh, it just didn't taste like it?
Massive chunks of fish of various types, of huge proportions, a meal in of itself. And the other thing that caught my eye, as a food drink latte guy, you can get a latte literally anywhere in Ireland. Convenience stores, food stands, hotels, not just coffee shops. I mean, anywhere. There's people like walking around here. You want a latte? Here it is. Oh, and we have your flavor, vanilla. I don't know how they've mastered it, but I guess it's a bigger issue there than here.
What was the over-under
none of them were Starbucks.
On lattes that you drank?
I drank a latte every day.
Just one?
Every single day.
Did you ever double dip?
Sometimes two.
Yeah, I would have gone back.
Let's get to our good friend Gerald Posner, award-winning writer, investigative reporter. Lots to get to regarding alleged breakthroughs on the JFK assassination story. I'm not sure our next guest is as convinced of this particular breakthrough, but it's worthy of discussion. In fact, he was just on News Nation talking about this very story and more with Gerald. He's next. Our next guest, believe, was just on News Nation, but I'm sure he is saving his best stuff this afternoon for us, given how highly compensated he's been over the years joining our program. It's our good friend Gerald Posner, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I hope the checks are still clearing, all those checks we've sent you over the years.
You know, I've got a drawer full of them. As a matter of fact, so what I'm impressed with, Dan, is that you're just back and no jet lag.
Well, I've come back with a cold, and it's already affecting my voice. That's the bad. I don't feel as bad as I sound, unfortunately. I'm trying to muck through the thing. I made the mistake. I'm blaming it on kissing the Blarney Stone because I'm pretty much there was a long line of people. So I'm thinking I got infected with something from the guy who was right there before me, kissing the stone. So.
It makes perfect sense. I think back to when I was a kid and going to church in San Francisco, St. Vincent de Paul, and we'd all put our hand into the holy water and that. And I think now, my God, with all I know about, communal water spots that are never changed, it's amazing we didn't get sick more often.
Let me read you a tweet that you're well familiar with to start our discussion, in which I want to go a lot of different ways if we have time. And thanks again for the effort on short notice again today. Many people deserve credit for this breakthrough, starting with the Oliver Stone JFK researchers, along with CIA Director Radcliffe, Robert Kennedy Jr., and President Trump. But mark my word, it was Representative Luna who actually made it happen. What is the it that this tweeter is referring to?
So that tweeter is actually referring to the fact that there is this personnel file of a former CIA agent, a guy called Ioannidis, who conspiracy theorists have for years thought was a major character, because if there was an Operation Oswald in the CIA, he was the guy that they think was running it, because he was financing the Cuban exiles and activists in Miami, which was a hot zone back in 1963. And he turns up when the House Select Committee does an investigation 15 years later as the CIA liaison, and doesn't tell anyone, by the way. In 1963, I was back with the Cuban exiles, so they all say that guy must be hiding the real goods. And the CIA didn't include his documents when they released them. They weren't over at the National Archives. So what that tweet is referring to is the fact that it took Luna and everybody else raising hell to get the file released. And that's actually great, because I signed a public letter back in 2003 saying, let's get this file out. Let's see his personnel record and see if it has anything good. I don't know what it's going to have in it, but I've always been for disclosure. And if it's got something big, then we'll have to talk about it. Now it's out. And guess what? No Operation Oswald, no monitoring of Oswald, no secret connections. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even know about Oswald before November 22nd, 1963. There's nothing in it. You'd think that would put it all to rest, but the same people who are demanding it, it's hard for them just to give it up. So they're now saying, wow, now we've got to find out more. There must be something else here. There will never be an end to it.
So what dots are they attempting to connect?
They were hoping that when this file was out, this personnel file of this guy, George Ioannidis, that it would show that in his personnel file, somebody at CIA headquarters was saying, by the way, how's Operation Oswald going? Hey, you still have eyes on Oswald? Anything new on Oswald? Right? Have you set up Oswald for some big mission yet? Anything like that. The name Oswald is even mentioned in his personnel file. Nothing like that. So they were hoping that this was the guy who was the connection to run some type of monitoring program, some type of surveillance, something else, maybe even using Oswald in a fake operation to cause war with Cuba. There are all types of things that had been speculated before. And now it's out. That's why I've always said, let's get the documents out. Why the CIA has taken 62 years to respond to this, why they've taken 22 years from the time I wrote a letter, together with the fellow who put up that tweet, Jefferson Morley, and others, Norman Mailer, had joined us on that original tweet, Anthony Summers, who thinks it's a conspiracy. We had all signed a letter. Why it's taken them 22 years to release it? No wonder people can't stand the CIA and they think something's wrong in the assassination, because the government is so slow, this rope-a-dope, this slow process of letting files out for no reason other than just the fact that that's how they operate. It's infuriating.
So is anything that was allegedly released here new? Was the alias new? Is that what they're grabbing onto here? What is precisely what is it fair to say is new regarding this particular these documents?
Yeah, so the great part of this is what is new here is an alias, because they have a guy who was one of the anti-Castro Cubans, as a matter of fact, and he says, I heard from some guy who had a name, and I think if I remember it right, it sounds like to me it was probably like Herbert, he says at first, and then he keeps trying to come up with something that he thinks is real, and finally what they end up with is this idea that they're looking for somebody who might have been dealing with the anti-Castro Cubans who had an alias, and was it this guy? And in his file is the idea that he had actually used this name at some point. Evidently, he had a license created in that name. And guess what? There were other CIA agents with the same name who were operating down there and using an alias as well. No evidence that he ever actually used it. No evidence that it had anything to do with Oswald. None of that as well. But that's the only linchpin they have is they say, he had a covert name that might have been used by might have been recognized by one of the anti-Castro Cubans. Meanwhile, you know what's interesting? Is the anti-Castro Cuban who had first thought that this name might have been used was alive until last year. He was down in Little Havana here in Miami. Any of those conspiracy people could have come over to him and shown him a picture of George Ioannidis, the agent, back in the 60s, or early pictures of him, and said, is that the guy? And he could have answered it. No one ever did that, because they hate to do that, because that will then end all the fun for them of guessing what might have happened. It's the same thing that happened with James Earl Ray, who used to say that some mysterious character called Raoul had told him how to plan the whole assassination. And when he finally picked somebody out of a lineup, then we were able to go to that Raoul, and it turned out it was a completely fake story. So no one likes to actually confront the witnesses with the real evidence.
So when you lay out your reaction to this, in your mind, non-story, what's the blow? I assume you usually get blowback from others who feel quite differently about it. How is that debate raging? Are you leaving that alone, or what is their response to what you've laid out?
Yeah, well, so there's a ton of vitriol. A lot of Posner get lost. I can't believe it. What a waste of time. You're such a jerk. You're still here trying to sell this Oswald alone story. Don't you know it's embarrassing? That type of stuff. You're a complete idiot. You must be a CIA asset. You're a dupe. So there's a role of that. And then there's a ton of stuff. And this morning I got into it a little bit, actually, on Twitter. Normally I try not to answer it, but there's just stuff that's wrong. I mean, people keep repeating the same wrong information. How can you have that crazy theory that Oswald did it when it was proven by the FBI that nobody could fire the gun as fast as he did in that amount of time. That I wish I had $1 for every time that was said, so I try to answer that. Mm-hmm. And somebody else will say, the Zapruder film was faked, and I say, no, that's not true. It was tested by the Select Committee, and there's no evidence of fakery. Somebody else says, well, they have sound acoustics experts who proved it was 4 shots. No, that was debunked actually back in '82. So you do try to answer some of it. There's just so much of it. And then you realize at a certain point, I should realize it earlier. I'm not going to change anyone's mind, especially on Twitter. Nobody's really open to the idea. Once they've locked themselves into a position, they're so inflexible. I say all the time, change my mind and my conclusion about what happened in the assassination by giving me evidence that makes me change my mind. You have to be open to it. But they won't. They're sort of fixed into it. They're looking only for confirmation bias, as I call it, evidence that supports what they have. And to Michael Schellenberger's credit, he let me post this rebuttal and this article today on his site public. I'm sure that a lot of people who subscribe to him and follow him do so because he's taken on, the legacy media and big state. He was one of those journalists selected by Musk on the Twitter files. And so I would imagine a lot of his subscribers aren't necessarily those who are standing up, jumping up and down and saying Oswald alone did it. So he, I'm sure, got a lot of pushback as well.
Well, you and I have talked about this many times over the years, that what you do understand, and this is what I think is underscored by this latest revelation, is that when the agencies of government, lie, hold on to stuff, hold out forever, even from the very beginning, and when you have alleged conflicts of interest, as you laid out regarding the committee that used someone that they should not have used, given the degree to which he's associated with the story back in '63, that's what arouses some of the suspicion. And I don't think you've ever suggested that governments don't lie or agencies don't lie to protect themselves. The question is what their motivation is all about, correct?
Yeah, I even wrote in Case Closed 32 years ago now, because that book was published in 1993, that the CIA had lied to the Warren Commission, withheld information. They didn't want the Warren Commission to know that they were in a partnership with the mafia to kill a head of state, not Kennedy, but Fidel Castro. They lied about the extent of their surveillance and the Cold War on anti-Castro Cubans. The FBI lied and ran away from their contacts with Oswald. One of the agents in Dallas at the field office even destroyed a note that Oswald had left there before the assassination, and that came out later. So the agencies both covered their asses, try to cover their bureaucratic reputations, and it's to their discredit that happened, especially the CIA, which not just did it to the Warren Commission, Dan, but then over the decades, with a whole new generation coming into the leadership in the 1990s and the early 2000s, it would have been easy for them to say, you know what? This wasn't our father's CIA, right? That was all involved in plots to kill Castro and lying to the Warren Commission and everything else. We will release all the documents that we have that are remotely related to anything to do with the assassination. But they kept that same sort of reflexive, instinctive agency policy, which is the same thing they have over at the Department of Defense and Defense Intelligence, the National Security Agency. I know it from firsthand from trying to get freedom of information requests. They fight you every inch of the way. They just don't want to release files. And when they finally come out, what do they show? They have almost nothing to do with the assassination, but they are embarrassing little escapades about sort of their flaws or mistakes or covert operations that now look ridiculous years later, sometimes protecting some still living asset who's alive, but for no reason of national security. The more that we see on the files that have been released, the more you just have to shake your head as a researcher and think, you guys have helped to feed the conspiracy theories by all this secrecy, and no one will change their mind now and believe, you've just held on to it all this time for the ridiculous reasons you really have.
All right, let's go in a couple of other stories as well in the time that we have left, because there's a lot of good stuff, I think, to discuss with you beyond this story. And that includes the DOJ. The DOJ, for a long time, seemed to be talking big about what they had and what they were kind of culling through regarding the so-called Epstein files. And now it sounds like there's no there, at least that's what they are claiming. So Update us on the report, the DOJ and FBI report on Epstein, and what you make of this and the ongoing question about an alleged client list.
Yeah, so, I mean, and this is a subject in which I don't just have an opinion as sort of a casual observer. I spent months last year reporting on this, talking to sources and people who had worked at the jail and others around Epstein, trying to develop what I thought was at least a story and possibly even a book about intelligence contacts to Epstein. And at that time, in the summer of last year, I concluded myself, I hit a brick wall and thought, okay, it's a suicide. I did think that. But I also thought that there was a client list. Was it written down in a formal paper and said client list at the top? No. Certainly was in Ghislaine Maxwell's head, and others knew about it as well. Now, when the new administration came in, Kash Patel was one of those people over at FBI, and Pam Bondi at DOJ, Dan Bogino over as the assistant coming into the whole process, who had talked about, the whole Epstein question in a more conspiratorial way, that they are coming together now to say suicide, not murder, and not leaving the door open on that, and no client list is really rather remarkable. I trust them on this, but I am skeptical. I think that they've gone too far on the client list, meaning that what I would have preferred them to say, and maybe this is the old lawyer in me or that, is we found no evidence yet of a client list. We cannot find a client list. That doesn't mean one doesn't exist. It just means that they don't have it. And I still am chasing some leads on what could be the client list. I think people just have to get over the impression that it's going to be a list of 130 names and it's going to be half of the Fortune 500 of that.
Because, in fact, even within the last day, you mentioned you believe that a foreign intelligence service may have a copy of said list. That's a story you're still going after. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am still chasing that. I've got one very good source on that. But that source is, the best way to say that, is not able to report what they tell me from seeing it directly, but from being in a position in the area that he works to come to across that information. I need somebody whose eyeballs were on it directly. I need a direct source, and I need a confirmation. So I'm sort of the old-fashioned. A story like that, I need two sources to go forward. I'm sure that there are probably some influencers out there who would go with half a source, but I still am not there yet.
Another story that was not on our list that I want to at least address here briefly that I'm curious to get your reaction to. I'm looking at some comments from Bernie Goldberg, of course, used to be 60 Minutes guy, and he is expressing great anger over the CBS decision to settle the Trump lawsuit. And he says, like I think a lot of people believe, that CBS didn't settle because the lawsuit had merit, but settled because of the Paramount merger. That's what this story is really all about. As a person who's been paying attention to journalism issues forever, how much does it bug you that CBS did decide to go belly up on a lawsuit that I don't think had a lot of merit, quite frankly? There's always the question of editing, but that happens almost every single day. What do you make of that? And, Bernie's not exactly, at this point, considered a hardcore lefty. This is a guy who certainly is now known to challenge the orthodoxy on the left. So what do you think of this story? What do you make of that whole situation?
Hey, look, when you settle a case as a big corporate client, you're always doing it as a transactional cost. I know this from having seen corporate clients do this in the past when I used to practice law. That is, you're saying, is it worth it? And is it worth it isn't just dollars and cents. It's worth it among a whole list of other things. Are you going to be battling the administration on other issues? One of them might be regulatory approvals for upcoming mergers. So I understand that all those factors play in, no question about it. The suit itself, I have to tell you that as a journalist, I always thought, boy, you have to show harm as well. It's very difficult to show harm here, considering that Trump won. Yeah. It's not as though, he lost the election, lost the swing states, and the difference came down to people saying in exit polls. It was that dynamic 60 Minutes interview that Harris gave that turned me around. When I saw the full part that was actually edited by CBS, I did shake my head because it's bad journalism. They really cleaned her up. They made her look better, no doubt about it. And it's a good change going forward that they've agreed that they will release now for anybody running for president the full transcripts. That's great.
Sure.
There'll be some transparency on it. They won't be able to clean people up as much. So I thought the case was weak on the legal merits, but it put a spotlight on that habit of taking a client that the network happens to like and then putting their finger a little bit on the scale to make them just look a little bit more savvy with it and together. And they certainly did that on the Harris case. Was it a legal case that Trump would have won in court? I'm not so sure about that.
Gerald Posner is our guest. A couple more minutes with him. You had also tweeted out your reaction to the Elon Musk news that he is launching what he calls the American Party. And you, of course, have some experience in writing about a significant third-party candidate back in the day by the name of Ross Perot. He had something called the Reform Party. Is this just, Elon continuing his new battle with Donald J. Trump to rattle his cage? You think he's serious about it? Is he just talking about a few, senatorial races? Or what are the implications of this story?
So, with Musk, who knows and who can predict? But I will tell you one thing. I know from having covered Perot and third parties that the mistake that third parties make, and Musk would make a mistake on this, is to focus on every 4 years in the presidential election. It's what the Green Party does, or that. It never wins the day. Instead, you have to be in the midterms, and he probably should stay away from, here's my free advice to the world's wealthiest man. Stay away from Senate races for the most part, because they're super expensive, and they're harder to turn the Senate. But in the House, if he has a party, and he has some districts that are purple, in which the margin goes back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, and he can run candidate on the issues that matter in that local district and win 5 or 6 seats in the new Congress in 2026, and the margin is as small as it is now one way or the other, that means either the Democrats or Republicans have to caucus with his 5 or 6 winning congressional members because they need them for a majority. And then it's like a position of having a say in the way government's managed. Sure. That would really put him in the play.
So help me out on the history here, because what you say seems perfectly logical, that you have to slow cook it. It can't just be, we're going to run a candidate for president and we're going to shock the world. Has somebody done that I missed, or why is that? Is it just too hard, too challenging that no one has actually tried? Because to me, that's the only chance you have to try to get something off the ground. Even then, I'm not sure it works here, despite all the grumbling. But why has the slow cook approach not been tried before?
It's amazing to me that it hasn't, in part because it's often built around one man. Perot was built around Perot. If Musk is the leading candidate here, you can't have a new party built just about one person. You need it to spread out. Can't just be about one issue. So it can't be just his objection to the big, beautiful bill and the fact that it's increasing the deficit and the country's going to be bankrupt, as he says. It has to be beyond issues that affect people's pocketbooks and really much broader. I don't know. Musk seems to me, at the very least, not only brilliant at times, but very impetuous. That's never good for building a slow cooking of party, as you say. You need to have patience. The one thing he does have that scares the hell, Dan, out of Republicans and Democrats is the money. Because, the way the law works, you can spend unlimited amounts in terms of PACs and supporting a party. He can match them dollar for dollar in every way, and that does really scare them. That's the only reason they would pay any attention to him at all, because he can really come in and make a difference on that.
Remind people how they can find your writings these days that don't involve books. The stuff that you put together often now, certainly every week. You're reacting to lots of stories that you've been covering. What's the best way for people who want to read you?
Short form is probably best on Twitter, where sometimes you'll get something sardonic or a little satire or short. I try to stick around Twitter size most of the time, not too many long pieces, but I comment on a lot of different things. And that's just at Gerald Posner. And then on Substack, I have a Substack called Just the Facts, and there I do write pieces every couple of weeks on a whole broad range of different things. The last one about this new incubator company that is allowing parents with enough money to look at 20 embryos and pick the genes that will not only protect their fetuses from future genetic diseases, but maybe even the color of their eyes and their hair and how tall they'll be and what their IQ will be. That, to me, is a little bothersome.
Terrifying, perhaps?
Small T terrifying for the moment because it hasn't really caught on. And it won't surprise you or your listeners. There are no federal laws prohibiting it. There are no regulations on it because, of course, that's what technology does. It comes up with something that jumps ahead of everybody else. And who's behind it? He's a 25-year-old kid who started the company. Big Silicon Valley investors like Peter Thiel and Ohanian are backing it. And that will move forward until someone in Washington wakes up and says, maybe this genetic sequencing and creating of a new elite for those who can afford it isn't the greatest idea.
If 3 or 4 stories don't intrude by the time we have you on next time, we'll try to get into more detail on that as I intended today. Thank you. Always great to visit. We appreciate the time, and we'll be in touch. Thanks, Gerald.
Welcome back, Dan.
Appreciate
really great to talk to you.
Thanks. Gerald Posner, who, by the way, for Case Closed, was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Didn't get the Pulitzer, but that's still a pretty good thing, I think, to have on your resume. At least once upon a time it was. 2025, it doesn't mean anything. But once upon a time, that was considered rather prestigious. An outstanding reporter, whether you agree with him or not. And there's a number of people on the JFK stuff who never have and never will. And you know why that's okay? Because in America, everybody can have an opinion. And what's the other cliche that we were talking about earlier in the show?
You don't have to listen to it?
No,
that's what makes America great.
That's what makes America great.
That's what makes America great.
As
Rebecca Lobo.
The canceled Rebecca Lobo.
Who's kind of one of us because of her Steve Russian.
Very true.
I say connection. Nuptials.
Very, very true, Davey. We got, a half hour to go? Back.
It is game time, soccer fans. You can join us and Michelob Ultra for the Ultimate Club World Cup viewing party Sunday, July 13th from noon to 2 p.m. at the local in downtown. Enter to win lots of great prizes, all while enjoying $4 Michelob Ultra pints and 5 for $25 natural, neutral. Come on, phonetic me buckets. Don't miss out. We'll see you at the local July 13th.
Tweet of the day. There's a woman reading a physical newspaper on my flight.
Are you nuts?
How often does that happen anymore? Everybody's got their e-readers and they got their phones and they got the movies to watch. So if you have your e-reader, you may be reading from a newspaper story. How many people left bring a newspaper onto a plane at all and actually take the damn thing out during the flight and read it? I have to believe it's, I don't know what kind of percentage you can put on it, but I'm
thinking like 5.
I think you're right.
5%.
I don't think it's much greater than that.
If there's 100 people on the flight, 5 of them might do that. That's 5%.
Is there a rule of the Larry David variety that when I get on a long flight, the person in the seat in front of me will always, from start to finish, flip back his or her seat as far as it can go from the beginning of the flight to the end?
Probably.
I look around the plane. I'm not making this up. The section I'm in, I'm looking around. And I don't see a single other. I see a few where it's back a little. But in my case, it's back all the way, and it's done in that abrupt fashion where if the person could, it's almost surprising that the seat doesn't end up in my lap. They do it so quickly. And the funny thing is on the return, early, it didn't happen. And I'm going, guess what? Might be my lucky day.
And
sure
good.
Enough, about a half hour later, it was... boom.
Well, that was about bedtime, right? Because you were flying...
Well, flying out there, you're flying at night. Yes, overnight. Flying back...
Oh, the return flight.
The return is in the morning.
Oh, okay.
There, and so
Shoot.
It was
That's
the 4th.
too bad.
Yeah, and I've told you still. I think I'm in the vast. I must be in a minority on this. When a flight leaves, in this case Dublin time at about, I think it was a 10 a.m. departure. And obviously, it was long, it was like 7.5 hours back. It was a nonstop flight direct to Minneapolis-St. Paul. Minneapolis-St. Paul time we landed, I think, about 12:10 in the afternoon, 12:15, which is kind of cool, because you gain so much time. I detest and despise whoever encourages people to put the shades down when it's a daytime flight. I don't like. Now, some of it might be, I guess, you got the screens and you're trying to help people on the screens, right? But I think it's unhealthy. I think it makes you sleepier than you need to be. For me, on a daytime flight, it's a daytime. I don't want that. I want to see daylight. Am I the only one like that?
No, I don't think so.
I think
we've talked about it before. I don't think so. But I think people get shamed into shutting them.
Yeah, that's some of it.
I think there's some social pressure that they don't want the sun blasting in. That some people might be trying to sleep, or they just don't want they don't want the sun coming through the window. So maybe they do that. I don't know.
I just, because everybody's like dragging. Well, yeah. Why would they not? We're acting like it's an overnight flight. Like the one going, okay, I get. You're leaving local time. I think we left at 7 p.m., something like that, 7:30. And okay, it's going to be overnight. Okay, I get it. I kind of, because it's going to be dark. But I don't like the psychology of it at all. It actually bugs me.
Do you like it when they dim the cabin lights during the day? Because sometimes they'll do that. You'll get the announcement from the flight attendant or the pilot saying, we are going to dim the cabin lights.
I don't like it.
If it's during the day.
During the day, I hate it.
I think that's a little weird, too.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think that part's weird.
It's just strange to me. This might shock you. Kessie texts, if I have an early flight, I buy a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, read on plane, take a nap, or a magazine.
I don't believe him.
He's one of the few left.
I don't believe him.
You don't even think he wants to sound really erudite and sophisticated.
I've been on planes with Kessie.
You don't think he reads anything, do you?
Well, I'll say this. After his performances in the Delta Club.
What does that mean?
When he's double-fisting drinks and wanders to the gate, he's not reading a damn thing. The nap part, but that's Delta Club related.
I've never been in the Delta Club. Is it nice here?
We've got a lot of them. We've got 3 of them.
In this airport?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Got a smaller one in C, got one right after security, kind of at FG, and then there's a beautiful new one all the way down on G, which is phenomenal.
Huh.
Yeah, they're nice.
That's good to know. I had no idea.
Come on in.
Must be nice in there.
You got to wait for Kessler to get his
status to be up to be in there. But anyway, I don't know. I've brought up this concern before, and I feel like I'm tilting at windmills that most people but maybe it is, like you said, just peer pressure that people give into it. And then occasionally someone will put the shade up just to take a look, and they'll then it is more
jarring
because of what you're used to, which is this dark. Do we have to travel in a cave during the day? I don't want to sleep during the day. The whole idea, I thought they tell you try to sleep at night. And get in early, then the challenge is trying to stay awake until the evening, which is difficult to do. But I didn't think the idea was we're going to sleep a lot. Now, I guess for some people, it's such a long flight, they don't they don't want to read. They don't know what else to do, and so they say, well, this helps pass the time more quickly.
I feel like the light thing has changed in the last handful of years. Do you? I feel like it's changed, where we do everybody shuts the blinds, and it's dark in there. I don't remember it always being dark. Well, dark. It feels darker than it used to.
Much darker. Yeah, and I'm guessing there's studies that say this is more soothing. This is what more passengers are asking for, or maybe this is what our research indicates that we should be doing. No, there were no barefoot passenger middle seat terrorism. Clayton's asking for Larry David-like stories, and that's it. That's the closest. Is that, in fact, on the flight out, which was overnight, the guy was so far back in front of me. I'm not making this up. That I had taken my shoes off and socks on. Remember, for the record.
Yep.
I needed to go use the restroom. I'm not good at. There are people who go to the restroom in their socks, which I don't understand.
Not a great idea.
It's a great idea. Not going to work for me.
No. Oh
so
God.
I'm trying to reach down to put my shoes back on.
Yeah. Can't get them.
There's honestly, my knees are. So I literally had to be kind of jackassian and said, Sir, you got to move your seat up. I can't even get my shoes on to go to the bathroom. And he did.
Oh, that's good.
But the moment I left the seat, he apparently, slammed the thing right back. Like, how dare you? And I know that what people say is, well, they presumably let you, move your seat back for a reason.
It's true. I don't begrudge people for doing it.
But I think there's, it's the old issue of courtesy. I'll look back a little bit, or maybe I'll do it gradually.
Yep.
But rather than just slamming it where the back of your seat might hit my chin. Doesn't seem fair to me. That's all. That's the closest Larry David thing that I could get to in terms of the flights. I think. I don't think there was anything all that controversial. That was it. It's just looking around. I'm going, every other seat seems upright, except for mine, except for the one in front of me.
Are you sure that every other seat was back? Wasn't back, and maybe just the seats next to you were up?
That's possible.
Maybe every other seat was.
That's possible.
I doubt it. I think you're probably right.
It's the old obliviousness issue that it's a shared space.
There's a lot of that. Yes.
It's not your plane. It's not a private plane.
No, not a lot of self-awareness.
I'll come back, wrap things up, and not only remind you what you missed earlier, but what we have coming up tomorrow.
The biggest muscle car party of the year is coming to the Minnesota State Fairgrounds July 18th through the 20th. The Street Machine Nationals. You can enter now for your chance to win 4 tickets at KFAN.com. Keyword contest. The show wrap is brought to you by American Pressure, commercial grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper show wrap.
Thank you, John Athletic, who joined us between 4 and 4:30 on today's program. And we also thank Gerald Posner, who joined us on a number of subjects, including the latest so-called JFK CIA revelations. He joined between 5:30 and 6, so both the interviews will be available to you via the usual podcast methods. The plan is for Luigi to join on tomorrow's broadcast, Fan on Demand tonight, and Dan Patrick. We may be planning some other things. We've got a lot of other good things coming up the rest of the week. Texter writes, I on my wife's most recent flight, the passenger in front of her flipped back her hair so that it covered her entertainment screen.
That's a big problem.
And she refused to move it back. I've mentioned on the show when this subject has been explored, the Steve Ashburner rejoinder. If indeed he's got somebody in the seat in front of him in his lap. Speaking of newspapers, he would take a broadsheet style, like, Star Tribune newspaper. Now, this was back in the day when it was a much wider, right? And he would fold it and then start reading a page. And as he's going down the page, he would have the top half of that page slowly creep over the top of the seat in front of him and ended up, in some cases, on the head of that individual. And when that person would say, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, "Oh, sorry, you're in my lap here. I'm just trying to read the paper." I don't know how successful that was, but that harkens back to days when people read broadsheet newspapers on the plane, which Kessler claims he still does, and we see very rarely any longer. And I'm tending to think with Kessler, it's more, like you said, what he wants people to believe about him.
It's image
than what he does.
Yes, it's romanticizing.
Be part of it, I think, for sure.
Most of his flights, he's usually leading the rouser because they're on the way to Gopher games. So
that's a very good point.
He's not reading the paper.
By the way, did I see the over-under on victories for the Gophers is only 6 or 6.5? Isn't that low? Isn't that light?
If you ask me, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not surprising. They're pretty much always there.
That's
6
where
or
the
7.
Vikings are.
Yeah.
Isn't it 6.5 again? Am I wrong?
You might be a little low.
A little low?
Yeah.
Okay. It certainly wasn't a number that had anybody thinking we're on the verge of greatness.
That's fine.
In either case.
We'll lay in the weeds.
Let's play?
Yeah, let's play. Go ahead and talk about Chicago and Detroit and Green Bay.
Gopher opener, what's the date?
Whatever that Thursday is. The 28th, I believe, of August.
28th of August, you say?
Thursday, yeah. Thursday, August 28th.
Who are we playing?
Buffalo. And by the way, I'm panicked.
Not the Bills.
I'm panicked about that game. Well, yeah, they're the Bulls. the Buffalo Bulls, I'm panicked because they're supposed to be pretty good in the MAC. So now I've talked myself into
trouble.
Don't sleep on the Bulls.
Trap game?
Don't sleep on the Bulls is all I'm saying.
Though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we've lost one or two.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah. Things pop up. It's the first game. First games are weird.
Have you talked to Mace lately?
No, I've texted with him and our buddy Dave about possibly getting together for dinner or something, but I haven't talked to Mace. I've been in some texts with Mace.
I haven't responded to this to a text from Mace in which he claims, I think the text was something like, Danny, we got to do a book. I'm trying to figure out whether we would stand each other long enough to actually, put together a Glenn Mason book. And secondly, would enough people read it? I know regionally there would be some interest.
Yeah.
And I guess that's all that matters in books like that. It doesn't have to necessarily have a national stamp on it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think people would like it. Here's the book I want.
What's that?
I think it shouldn't be you helping him write his book, because that's obviously what he wants.
Right, yes.
I think it should be you guys each tell your side of the story on different games or moments.
Oh, my God.
And you can go, this is what I was thinking, and then Mace can say...
Fact or fiction?
Fact or fiction.
Every chapter is fact or fiction.
I think that's the book you guys need to write. I don't think he's going to like that one as much.
No, I don't think he's going to go along with it.
He doesn't get final edit of that one.
What are the odds that he would actually go for that? I don't think they're...
Maybe one for him, one for you.
That's a thought, yeah.
I like the second book idea.
Yeah, that might be workable. I don't know. We'll have to indeed see. Well, what are our odds? I assume Brennan's in significant...
yeah, but Chris Brennan, it seems like she's available.
I mean, Brennan, we do go way back.
You do.
That can't hurt.
No.
So, yeah,
we'll get her.
I'm hoping, because there's some interesting ground to explore in the book. Did you read the chapter about... I don't know who it was who was talking, basically saying, are you guys ready for this? To some league official.
She was saying it to a league official.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the league official said, yeah, we expect, this could be as big as Maya Moore. And Brennan said, and she's right, they don't get it. This isn't about whether she's as good as Maya Moore.
Correct.
It's about what she represents in terms of where this league will go with her.
What did we say last summer?
Yeah.
All last summer. I said it, you said they were not ready for it.
No, they were not.
They just weren't ready for it.
I worry that they're still not, unfortunately, as we were talking about earlier as well. Hopefully the voice will be better tomorrow. I don't feel awful, but the voice is... so I'm going to get the ayahuasca honey out and see if I can get a little bit of soothing voice for tomorrow's program. As I mentioned, Fan on Demand is right around the corner, and we're in the abyss. So it's the one and only, the inimitable Dan Patrick. We will talk to you tomorrow, I hope, 3 o'clock.
The job is done. We can go home now.